Hi everybody, welcome to my first vlog here on Reading in Bed. It may also be my last vlog. We'll have to see how this goes and see how many compliments you guys leave me in the comment section. So scroll on down and say something nice. Today I'm going to be talking about novellas in November, which is pretty self-explanatory. There's just a couple of us book bloggers that are reading as many novellas as we can this month. After I'd made my list of novellas that I wanted to read, the first thing I did was I went on to the Edmonton Public Library's website and found out how many I could get that way. So a couple days later, I went to pick up my haul, and there's a lot of really great looking books here, so I thought this would be a good way to show them off and kind of talk about them a bit. And I'm going to show them in roughly the order in which I like their covers, with leading up to my favorite. So I'm going to start with The Testament of Mary by Colm Toibin. And this book has, there's a lot of buzz going on with this. It was shortlisted for the Man Booker Prize and recently put on a long list for a Dublin Book Award, which I can't remember what it's called. But it's making the rounds, and it's pissing off a lot of Catholic people, which is always a bonus. So I'm looking forward to reading it, but I was surprised when I saw the cover. I'd only seen the UK or the Europe cover, which has a picture of Mary on it, whereas this one is just very plain. It just has the author's name and the title, and then it goes right into the first paragraph of the story, which is kind of cool. It's unique, but overall the cover doesn't really grab me. So this would be my least favorite, The Testament of Mary. The next one I'll show you is Memories of My Melancholy Horrors by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And I just finished this book about half an hour ago, and the book was great, but the cover, I don't know, I mean, this is a very sort of iconic style for a lot of Marquez's books, very easily recognizable with the flowers, and more of that on the back. You can find a lot of his books sort of presented in this style. It's not really my favorite, but he is one of my favorite authors, and this book was very reminiscent of Love in the Time of Cholera, which, depending on my mood, is my favorite book of all time. This one's a little difficult to get into because, well, I'll just read you the first sentence of the book and you'll know exactly why. The year I turned 90, I wanted to give myself the gift of a night of wild love with an adolescent virgin. So there you go. 90-year-old man, 14-year-old girl, kind of gross. Debatable whether it's actually consummated, but either way, it's, you know, there's an ick factor there. It's beautifully written, and when I do my review, I'll be pulling out all sorts of quotes, but, you know, yeah, it's just a little tough. At least in Love in the Time of Cholera, everyone's sort of above the age of consent, so Memories of My Melancholy Horrors, and I guess in terms of titles, this would probably be my favorite one. Next one I'll show you is A Way of Life Like Any Other by Darcy O'Brien, and I know very little about this book. I haven't read it yet, and I only chose it because it was published by the New York Times Review of Books, and I recently read Stoner by John Williams, published by that same New York Times Review of Books, and saw this while I was going through the list of those books. It came in around 150 pages, so thought why not. I do like this cover though. It's a photograph from the 50s and kind of speaks to what this book is about, which is life in Hollywood in the 50s. I think it's kind of a coming of age short kind of story. Parents are movie stars, so should be an interesting kind of juicy read that way, I suppose. Next one, Bonjour Tristesse by François Seguin. I read this book last week, and if you saw my review on the blog, you know that I loved it. This is, you know, probably entering my top 10. And it's the kind of book that you just kind of kick yourself after you read it for not having read it years earlier. And in my review, I talked about how this compares to Catcher in the Rye in terms of the unlikable protagonist and the coming of age and the, kind of frank discussion of sexuality, even more so in this book, I would say. Very scandalous for something published in the 50s. But yeah, I mean, I read Catcher in the Rye when I was maybe 17 or 18, and I wish I'd read this one too. It would have been nice to have something other than the American male perspective on these kind of issues. And it's just so beautifully written. The cover didn't really appeal to me at first, but once I'd finished it, I realized that, yeah, this is Cecile. What she's wearing, her posture, everything about it just kind of screams Cecile to me. So I came around on the cover, loved the book, pick it up, try it out. In second place, we have The Wizard of Oz, the annotated Wizard of Oz. So when I picked this one up from the library, I was kind of surprised. Most of the books were pretty tiny, being novellas, whereas this one, as you can see, is not so tiny, going on about 500 pages. So this is a 100th anniversary edition of the book, and there's tons and tons of supplementary material. The introduction itself takes up the first 100 or so pages, and there's all sorts of color illustrations, stuff like this in the middle. The actual text is just sort of, interspersed throughout, but, I think I might find myself a different edition to actually read that's just the text, because I kind of like to go in blind on these things. But I think this is just a great book. Like, what a great thing to have on your shelf or on your coffee table. Whether you're a fan of it or not, it's just such a famous book. You can't really go wrong with it. So this was kind of a surprise. Made my trip from the library a little more difficult to handle due to the weight, but Wizard of Oz, great edition of this book. And finally, this was my favorite book that I got out of that library haul, and it's called Christmas Stories. I really knew nothing at all about this book. I found it because I was searching for the novella The Night Before Christmas by Nikolai Gogol. Recommended it to me on Twitter. This is what it came up with, so I thought, well, okay, I'll just see what this is about. And it's a short story collection, which includes that one and a whole bunch of others, all kind of themed on Christmas. And the first thing that grabbed me about this one was the cover. I love this. As you can see, it's very Goldfinch-esque, with the bird kind of bursting through the paper, and it's Christmassy without being obvious about it. That's what I love. We've got the red and the green, the colors on the spine. On the back, we've got Santa Claus kind of hiking through the snow. I just love that. It's very attractive, and I like that it's kind of small for a hardcover. It fits really well in your purse or your bag. Great looking book. And then when you look inside and start to see what's included in this collection, it just blew me away. I'll just read you some of the authors who have contributed to this collection. We've got Dickens, Gogol, Arthur Conan Doyle, Tolstoy, Chekhov, O. Henry, Nabokov, Truman Capote, John Updike, and Alice Munro, and many others. What a great and eclectic group of authors. None of them would really put me in mind of Christmas, except maybe Dickens, but the rest of them not really. So just a really surprising collection. I read the Gogol story. It's a little weird. It's kind of a Ukrainian folktale, so I didn't really know what to think about it, but I'm really excited to read the rest, and I think I'm going to buy this book for myself. This is something I need to have on my bookshelf and in my life, and I'm really looking forward to reading this late at night, in front of a fire beside the Christmas tree, that kind of thing. So Christmas Stories, this was my #1 book of my Novellas book haul. So that's it. That was my my novella book haul. Thanks for listening and watching, and maybe we'll do this again sometime. Thanks.